Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well today. It's Michael back at you guys with the first ever female veteran to come on the podcast. Vets to civilians, that's what we're calling it now. So Valerie, appreciate you coming on today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Not bad. We can't complain because we're in Florida, right? Living up that sunshine weather where everyone wants to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't go wrong. So hey, why don't you let everyone know a little bit of your background, why you joined the military, what branch of service you joined, and tell us a little bit about your travels and your time in.
Yeah, so I went to high school in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I did the JROTC there, and I was the little nerd that did all those things, and it was actually Air Force. So I actually almost went Air Force.
Okay.
My grandfather was a mechanic in the Air Force, actually. And so, I always had kind of the sense of duty and honor, and, the military always interested me. But truly, my dad asked me one day in high school, he said, "Hey, so how are you going to pay for college?" I said,
Yeah, exactly. That's the number one question, right?
"I don't know." I said, I haven't really thought about it. He said, "Well, you better think about it." I mean, there was no scholarship from mom and dad. So
Yeah,
if you're going to go and you're going to go, right? My parents were, everybody's different. I don't believe everybody needs to go to college, but my parents were very much, you need to go to college.
right.
That's how it was in my family. So I started talking to my JRTC instructor, and he brought up the service academies. And he said, you should think about the Air Force Academy. And I said, I don't know what that is, but I kind of want to go to, like a good good school. And he said, it is a good school. I said, well, I've never heard of it. I'm just saying. So,
Yeah, like new to me.
I had never heard of, the service academies before. And so he educated me. He was a retired colonel, so he educated me pretty quick. I ended up visiting both, and I fell in love with the Naval Academy. So I ended up going that route. I got direct entry to Air Force, and I got the prep school for Navy. So that was an unpopular opinion to choose Navy prep school over direct entry to Air Force, but I did it. I wanted to travel. I ended up getting a systems engineering degree. Did a lot of things while I was there, in athletics and extracurriculars and things like that. And then my first choice actually was to go into the submarine community.
Okay.
My grades were crap, if I'm being honest. I didn't even get an interview.
So was it
I,
a good party school or what? What were you saying? It was
I,
good.
yeah, I mean, I was, I don't know if you've heard of like the 2-1 go, but let's just say I was pretty close to that group.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to do research on that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I mean, I was captain of the powerlifting team. I managed a swim team. I was in charge of the yearbook. I had a systems engineering degree, and I was working on a Chinese minor. So I was busy, and my grades were crap.
Wow.
Yeah, my grades sucked.
Yeah.
I was chasing too many cats, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. And I believe it was a blessing in disguise, me not even getting an interview to go subs. I ended up commissioning as a SWO, as a surface warfare officer for anybody that's not Navy.
Okay.
Uh, and I went to my first ship, and I said, I love engineering. I love the people in engineering. I love the work. And the captain of the ship said, yeah, I think you'd make a really good commo. And I said, I don't know what commo is, but that doesn't sound like engineering.
Yeah. Hold on a second now.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So he got it in his mind that I would be a great communications officer. So I was in charge of basically everything related to IT and crypto. Um,
Okay.
so then he asked me to stay on board for my second tour, and he said, I'd like you to stay here for your second tour, and it's called a fleet up when you stay on the same boat for your second tour as a junior officer. And I said, okay, well, what jobs do you have? Because I'm trying to stay in Mayport. I don't want to go to, wherever else,
Yeah.
Norfolk, Navy capital. So he said, well, I do have navigator. I think you'd make a great navigator. And I said, I see you have DCA written up there on your board. Could I be, the damage control officer? Because that is engineering. And he said,
Yeah.
oh, no, 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 you don't want to do that. You'd be a great nav. I said, but damage control sounds really cool. And he said, well, take some time to think about it and come back and let me know if you want to be nav. So he kind of was like,
They just not even giving you a
he
chance
kind
to
of was
get that. Like, come on
like,
now.
man. So I thought, well, I mean, it's kind of like, the beast and the one you don't. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll do this. I'd rather stay here and, with people that I know and, be able to learn new stuff. And again, blessing in disguise. It became the most rewarding tour that I did. So while I was nav, I was also in charge of medical, recreational off duty safety, all these random programs, admin. Um, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from my peers, from my sailors, from the leaders, and it was fantastic. And finished that tour. I was able to be sort of a pseudo department head, right? So I hadn't been to department head school, but I was treated like a department head on the ship. And so that really helped me learn a lot and be able to see what that next step of leadership was like. And so that was a really beneficial tour for me. And from there, I was still able to stay in Jacksonville. I went to shore duty down at the Jack space. And then I worked in, again, not engineering, security and force protection and counter UAS, all of those types of things at the regional headquarters down here. So definitely have done a lot, which is kind of the beauty of being a SWO. You kind of get the jack of all trades, master of none
Sounds
experience.
like it.
Um,
Yeah.
Lots of unrelated things, forced growth, I like to call it.
Okay. That's a good way to put it.
Yep, yep. Uh, let's see. So that took me through, I was at the regional headquarters up until January of last year. And really, I had to make a decision as far as whether I wanted to stay in or get out, because the next step for me was going to be department head school. And what that looks like, is you go to school for months and then you specialize in, being a certain type of department head, and you do 2 back-to-back sea tours after that. So, and you're committed because at that point, they've invested a lot in you to go to department head school.
Right. What do you mean by committed? Do you mean like you're in for the rest of the 20? You got to do 20 at least, or?
So you don't have to, right? But the Navy is really smart on planning these timelines out, because
Okay.
if you stay in, right? So at this point, right, I had been in, you know, most people have been in 8 or 9 years at this point. So then if you elect to go to department head school, now you're talking about adding on, another probably 3 years, 4 years.
Okay.
So when you get to that point, you've been in, by the time you finish that commitment for department head, you've been in for 13 years. So
Yeah.
that's where it's, okay, do I want to get out at 8? Do I want to get out at 13? Most people, they go to 13 and they're like, well, shoot, I'm this far. I might as well stay in till 20. So,
Yeah.
I didn't want to, it was really a challenging decision for me because I loved being in the military. And I still am in as a reservist, but um, I didn't want, I wasn't getting out because I was a bitter SWO. I just knew that there were some other things that I wanted to accomplish in life. And if I moved for another 3, 4 years in that direction and went to sea duty, it was going to make those other things more challenging to accomplish. So that was kind of the decision point for me. So I elected to get out, really focus on starting my own business. And, I decided to stay in the reserves because I do love being in. Like I said, I didn't get out of bitter SWO. A lot of people get out unhappy after being in the SWO community.
Right. I mean, it seems like you did a whole bunch of everything but what you got commissioned for, right at the end of the day, but it still all worked out for you. What did your plan look like when you were going to get out? Like, how long beforehand did you know, like, all right, I'm probably going to make this move? Did you have it planned out pretty good, or was it kind of up in the air?
So I had fallen in love with fitness a few years prior. I was fortunate to get out on shore duty. Some people get out while they're on sea duty, and it's much harder to plan, when you're still getting underway with a ship and things like that. So me being at a regional headquarters, gave me a lot more flexibility to do that. So I actually started my LLC and my fitness business before I got out, built that up a little bit. And then was actually contacted by a company to do some recruiting work. So When I transitioned out, I didn't take advantage of um, the, I forget what the program is, but
Like TAPS or something like that, like
yeah,
Soldier for Life or something like that, whatever you guys
yeah,
had to get out.
yep. You do like an internship, and your command has to approve it, basically.
Right.
So I didn't do that, but I did already have a job lined up pretty much when I got out.
That's good.
So, and the goal was not necessarily to make that a new career. It was just, knowing that, you can't start a business and it just, boom overnight. You've got to spend some
Yeah,
time.
you got to put time in, and most of them fail within the first 5 years. So it's definitely something that's not going to happen in the first 365 days.
Right. So that was my plan. Was I'm going to use this job to hold me over, and in the background, I'm going to sort of build my business. So I did that. I had developed a love for fitness. I did get hurt back in 2014. So I've got some disc issues in my neck and my back, and because of those, I get migraines along with some other issues that I've got going on. But
Yeah.
so I had developed a passion for fitness beforehand, but after I got hurt, I really developed a passion in helping other people kind of get through pain management associated with injuries and things like that. So I'd worked with people that were, post cancer and all kinds of different things. And I had gained a lot of weight actually from my injury. I'd gained about 40 pounds. And then last year, I decided I got to figure this out and get this off, because I can't keep moving in this direction, because it's impacting my health.
Right.
Piece of it too is, I'm not going to help people and teach them how to do it and, not walk the walk myself. So
you don't want to be a hypocrite, huh?
right. Yeah. I didn't
Yeah,
want
exactly.
to, yeah, you can do this. And,
It's crazy. Yeah, you know exactly what to do, but sometimes you find yourself doing that exact same thing you're not supposed to be doing. Like, yeah. That's all good though. You're in the right direction. I mean, you definitely do health and wellness. You can't go wrong, right? Once you get, I mean, we've all been in good shape. We've been in the military. You were in sports. I played sports my whole life. It's like when you're in shape and you're doing that or whatever out to sea, you got all this time to hit the gym. Usually you got time and you do that because you got nothing else to really do, other than sleep. But I heard the Navy got long days. I just talked to my buddy Gene before you, and he was saying he was working like 16, 18-hour days as an engineer, and then pulling 2 watches. I'm like, dude, that's 26 hours. Where'd you sleep? It's like
Japan too. Japan is that FDNF schedule is just really, really tough.
yeah, it's tough. People don't have different perspective like us. We sort of got a taste of it because when we deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, I was around CBs and all these different. So you talk to all these different people in the military, all these branches. Like, man, the Navy, it seems tough. You got to test and do all this. They said the Army, you got to go to a board and do this. It's like all these, it's all different no matter where you go. So you got to be on your P's and Q's, I guess, even no matter what you do, right? Or you're just going to get spit back out. But my question to you, I guess, what does the sick call process look like? All that stuff when you were getting hurt, like were you on a ship? Were you getting it documented? Was it just swept under the rug and you just kept doing 100 different tasks that you were geared out to do? Or like, what'd you do?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So I got hurt in 2014, basically I want to say it was 3 months actually before graduation. And so my worst fear was, what if I really get all of this stuff documented and they find me unfit to commission, and now I can't actually graduate and pursue my military career. So, the 22-year-old, however old I was, version of me was like, well, I'm not going to go and tell everybody about my injury.
Right.
I'm going to do enough to get me by and make sure that I'm, not going to break my back and not be able to walk again or anything. Right. But I'm going to kind of keep this a little quiet.
Right.
So I didn't have any issues commissioning, which was great, because that was my worst fear was, not being able to graduate and commission into the military, which is what I had spent the past 4 years preparing for at that point.
Right.
So I get to my first ship. Right. And, it was funny at that point, I was still in shape, right? Because I had only gotten hurt a couple months ago. And before that, I was a nationally competitive powerlifter. So
right.
Compared to everybody else that had been all broken down and not been getting any sleep, underway on the ship, I looked like I was, at the top of my game. I didn't feel like I was at the top of my game, but, especially as a new junior officer, your primary focus is going to be on qualifications and learning and things like that. So I didn't do the best job of taking care of myself, because the goal was just get qualified, get my surface warfare pin, get my OOD letter so I can stand watch on the bridge and, hit all the wickets that I need to, my career wickets.
Right.
So you do that, you prioritize your sailors, and, you end up putting your health on the back burner. And I think that that's true of most people, just because they get tunnel vision. And, most people that go into that situation are high performers. And so they don't want to be distracted by health things. And so they kind of sacrifice their health. Now, once I started slowing down a little bit and getting those qualifications and thinking, hey, I got to take better care of myself and going to sick call, I've found that, having a good doc on a ship can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's tough, I think, for medical professionals in the Navy, because when you talk about, out in the civilian world, you've got people that have gone to medical school, they've done their clinical hours, and then they go straight into practice. When you talk about most medical professionals, in the military and in the Navy, they aren't a medical professional first. They're a service member first and a
Right.
medical provider second. And so they have to deal with things like, divisions and sailors and all kinds of other things outside of their specialty. And so it can, I think, really make it hard for them to give you the best treatment, and not through any fault of their own, but just due to the fact that, they're really balancing kind of two careers at once, and trying to help people. So, I had better luck with some than others. I was lucky to, on my second sea tour, have a fantastic senior chief who was our doc on board. I would say that there's a lot of folks that are notorious for just giving out ibuprofen and saying you're good to
And
go.
water. Take
Yeah.
a knee and drink water. So you guys had the same recipe that we had.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I think the Navy's got stock in ibuprofen or something. There's got to be.
Probably. Or they produce something, or they making it at the school now or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Undergraduate class produce
Oh,
ibuprofen.
Oh yeah. So, I really got better about it once I got to shore duty, because my schedule slowed down. I was able to get better sleep, which helped me. Sleep is important in being able to recover from your injuries, and none of us in the military get enough sleep. So if you have injuries, that's going to impact your ability to recover at all. I wasn't able to go through. So I think that one of the toughest things for people that have musculoskeletal injuries, that are on sea duty, is that you really can't go to physical therapy, because the problem is, the physical therapy that you have at the base, if you're underway, for a month at a time, every other month, great, you can make a physical therapy appointment, and then you're gone for 2 months in the middle of the ocean, and you come back, and you can't just do physical therapy once every 2 months. It's just not going to be effective. The other thing is, things like dental too, dental and physical therapy. You can't plan appointments 6 months in advance. So just being able to, it's not so much the access to care so much as, or the quality of care so much as the inherent difficulties associated with just the schedule of being, deployable essentially.
Right.
So that was a challenge for me, and I was able to start going to physical therapy and chiropractic and things like that once I got to shore duty. But at that point, I was already, 4 years post-injury.
Wow.
So, not being able to get the frequency and consistency of care that I needed until 4 years after injury, you've got scar tissue, you've got all kinds of things that are healing incorrectly, and you develop imbalances. So,
Yeah.
that was the most challenging thing for me, I think. It wasn't that the professionals weren't good or things like that. It was just, the nature of the schedule of being on sea duty, I think, was really the toughest thing.
Yeah, you just never really had that much time allotted to take care of yourself, or the necessary. Yeah, if you're stuck on a ship, you're not going to have the same Role 3 facility that you might have, or whatever you guys call it, main hospital on base in Jacksonville. So that's That's a great point to actually bring up, because I mean it seems like a lot of people just neglect it, no matter Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines, like just all the same thing. Yeah, we put our thing on. Hey, I'm a sergeant major, 30 years. I put my own self on the back burner, but then I got out the Army and I was at I didn't even know what happened, or stuff like that. So what was something on the flip side? What was something that you were using to your benefit when you were on the way out? What was some programs or anything like that that you used to your benefit?
The biggest advice that I can give everybody is twofold. If you can, especially for people in the Navy, transition out while you're on shore duty. Because some people transition out, based on kind of their career, what their specialty is. They're on sea duty and they say, well, I'm not going to take a shore duty. Maybe they're bitter and they're like, I just want to get the heck out of here. Um,
Yeah,
and being on sea duty and trying to get everything together to transition to civilian life is really difficult, especially if your ship is, deployable and getting underway and things like that. So, being able to transition to sea duty really helped set me up. And it allowed me to go to medical appointments. And every single boo boo that I had, I went to medical and got it documented. And it wasn't, I mean, yes, it made my, VA claim easier and things like that. But aggressively pursuing treatment is really important because I think there's a lot of people that get out younger and they're so used to ignoring all those things. And it might not be until 2 years after you get out that all those things really start manifesting. And
that's true.
if you haven't gotten them treated and documented and things like that, and it's 2 or 3 or 5 years later, it's going to be so much more difficult, number one, to treat them, but two, to get the appropriate healthcare and documentation that you need, right? So I didn't make anything up, right? There's a lot of people out there that, game it and say, hey, go tell them, when you transition out that you got erectile dysfunction and that you have all this stuff, right? And
Yeah.
look, I got enough real problems. I don't need to make any up.
Right, exactly. That's why a lot of people, it's like, dude, you're not going in there to lie. You're literally just going to go tell them what you
Right.
did in the military when you deployed 15 times out of 20 years.
Right, right. And if you have been somebody that has been operational, and there's some people, it's not often, but there's some people that, spend their whole career basically at a desk job and never deploy and nothing on them, right? But they probably don't have maybe the extent of the issues that a lot of other people do that have been deployed and things like that. So I just think that there's a lot of people that want to be tough and they want to get out and they don't want to document it, or they're on the way out and they don't want to let go of their job and they stay too involved. And that transition time is really the time to shift your focus finally towards yourself and setting yourself up, and not just for you, but for the other people that are in your life that are not in the military, because you can't just shift your focus from taking care of, your sailors and your soldiers and things like that to you get out and now you shift your focus entirely to taking care of your family. Now you still have not spent any time taking care of yourself, and if you are distracted by your own problems, you're not going to be able to help anybody else anyway. Um,
Yeah, you're really not. Did
yeah.
you feel like you struggled with that at all when you got out, or was it kind of smooth?
I did a little bit. I definitely had a hard time kind of giving things up. I, for the most part, came into jobs with very little turnover in the military, and it was a lot of just figuring things out. And so, I had a hard time, after I developed a lot of these things, my relief came in, and I had a hard time, I think, giving things to him and telling him, okay, you got this. But learning
Yeah,
to step back and just say, okay, this has been my baby for the past 4 years, but I trust you to take it. I think a lot of us struggle with that issue too. And then I, after I left my ship, for example, I still stayed in contact with my captain. He said, hey, we're getting underway, you want to come take the boat underway? I said, I can't do that, you already have another
yeah,
there. um,
yeah,
so you still know these people, and they've all been your family for years, and so sometimes it's hard to just let it go. And I still stay in touch with lots of people, but not letting it be the primary thing in your life that has been the primary thing in your life for years. Yeah, it's tough. You have to kind of learn how to be a real human again. when you get out.
Yeah, but you did something great that you pivoted into being an entrepreneur, and it's like I sort of did the same thing, and no better group of people than veterans that could be like a successful entrepreneur. Like they say, I think like 1/3 of the small businesses after like World War I were like started by military veterans, and now it's like it's not even close to like 5 or 10. It's a very low number, so it's like you just find something that you love to do and bring all that stuff you're doing in the service, and you're like transferring it to your own business. And the way I think is like, if we're gonna work you're in the Navy, but you're doing it because like you want to do it. Like what I tell people, I'm like, yo, I'm doing it because this is who I am. I'm not doing it because you do it because of the uniform and all that comes with it all. But no matter where you go, you're gonna be doing it for yourself, your family, whatever you go after it for. So it's like, talk about that transition like into your business. I'm sure that was like obviously it's a big leap of faith for one, you going all out, because I saw you get your car wrapped up, and I thought about doing the same thing. You're like going all out for marketing your truck. My bad, y'all, I got a little Camry. I'm not trying to hate on you for having that big truck, so don't hate on me now. One day, but like you're doing it up, and it's like, what better bet to place than on yourself? I mean,
Yep. Yeah. So the transition out for me, I knew that I wanted to be in the fitness space. I had developed a passion for that, right? I had lost my ability to do a lot of that stuff. And so I also became passionate about helping people rehab through injuries that they'd had. So those were really important to me. I think it's hard sometimes for people that have been so focused on the military to even figure out what they're passionate about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you just kind of forget, right? Because you sort of lose yourself because your identity is the military, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
if people ask you while you're in, what do you do for fun? I know when people ask me, what do you do for fun? I was like, I don't have fun. I don't know what that is. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any passions or hobbies or things anymore. So I think that that's a big struggle for a lot of people, is even figuring out what you like again, because you have grown and evolved as a person over your years of being in, but you haven't had the opportunity to explore things necessarily outside of the military. So luckily for me, I had found that passion of fitness. And so I decided that I wanted to start my own business. I was able to do that while I was on shore duty. Thankfully, I was at a command that would allow me to do that. So I started taking on some personal training clients and things like that. I got certified actually shortly after getting to shore duty. Took on some clients and then decided to start my LLC, which I did. And now it's branched out. I'm actually about 50% in person and about 50% online and remote. And so I work with a lot of people that are stationed in places like Japan and underway on ships and stuff like that, because I understand what it's like, because I've been there and I've lived it. So it's been very rewarding for me. The toughest thing is transitioning out. That was not going to replace my military paycheck, so I knew that I could not, just get out and say, well, I've got a few clients and now I'm going to live off of this. And, because it wasn't, it was more like spending money at that point.
Yeah, you're putting it all back in to try to grow your clientele. That's what you're building a business. That's what you do. It's like, you don't go spend your money on steak. You're like, well, I got to go do this wrap for my car, my truck. So I got to, or do whatever you got to do. But what you would say, it's worthwhile though, right? You're doing what you love. You look like you're happy. You're enjoying yourself.
100%. Yeah. I think that a lot of people that, get into a business because they think that it's going to be highly profitable, are making a big mistake, because you're going to get burnt out so fast. It requires so much of you, physically, emotionally, and that takes you away from your family too. And so if it's not something that you can find passion in, I think that that's why a lot of most businesses fail. I don't think it has much to do with the aptitude. I think it's the attitude.
Yeah. Well, we were just saying, Gene, my buddy Gene was saying, he was in the Navy too. And he was like, sometimes people just say no one time, and so they just stop at that. Like, it's like, dude, you're not even trying. Like, you think it's just going to get delivered to you on like a silver platter. Same thing with people with the VA. Like, oh, well, I went one time and I didn't get nothing. Like, dude, that's the first time you went in 5 years. Well, you got to build a case. It's just like anything else. Like, you know, you got to be smart about all this stuff. But there's plenty of things out there to help veterans and, you know,
Yeah.
military community. It's just not really widely spread. So.
Yep. Bro, I'm half Puerto Rican, so I mean, you tell me no, and it's just gonna like fire me up.
Oh, you know, yeah, you're gonna get riled up on that. So.
Yep. So I mean, it was kind of like, I know that I can do this. I don't know how fast I can do this.
Right.
When I transitioned out, my goal was I'm going to get a job, and my mindset on getting a job, because I knew that I wanted to own my own business and have that be my primary thing. My mindset with getting a job, and I joke about this all the time, is I'm going to get whatever pays me the most amount of money for the least amount of my time. And there is nothing beneath me. I
Yeah.
don't care if it's shoveling horse manure. I'm not somebody that's going to say, look, I got a systems engineering degree and I'm a naval officer, so this job is beneath me. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's working at Walmart. If it's going to give me the most money for the least amount of my time so that I can build my passion and my business, then I'll do that. And so I ended up finding, a job in recruiting, and it was a total remote job and allowed me to work from home. But, I got to the point where I couldn't keep up with it because, now I got into 8-hour workday sitting in front of my computer screen, and it really did start exacerbating all of the things that I had going on with my injuries,
Right.
which kind of led me to where I'm at now. And I am just starting my journey with the VRNE program, which, I highly recommend that anybody that's got service-connected disabilities look into, because that's something that is going to be helping me quite a bit as I go through this process.
Yeah, and that's great that you got approved for that. I got to use that as well. Didn't
Mhm.
know about it when we left the service, but we found
Right.
out about it. How'd you find out about it?
Same thing. I had never heard about it while I was in, and once I got out, I'm on the VA website exploring all the different things, because I'm like, look, I'm at 80%. There's got to be some different programs and things that I can use, because I know that there's people out there using things. And so I just explored
Yeah,
their website. That's literally all I
that's
did.
it. It's all. You like go down rabbit holes, but you just go down the right ones of looking for benefits for vets, programs for vets, things for
Mhm.
vets, retreats for vets. You know, all that. There's so much stuff out there. You can get free SeaWorld tickets, free Busch Gardens.
Yep.
The list goes on, but that's the beauty of this. It's like never-ending benefits and stuff like that. It's just got to be presented in a manner that people can digest it and be like, "Hey, let's go do this." There's so much. So that's great. What would you tell a younger you, or like someone that's still in, or what would you tell? What would your message be to the veteran community right now, or someone that's in the service? What would you let them know?
Biggest thing that I would say is everything that you can do to get documented and take care of your problems while you're in, the better. Because when I first transitioned out, right, I filed my own claim. People hire all these lawyers and all these kinds of things, right? I did my
Yeah,
own claim before transitioning out, which if you start before you transitioned out, you get bumped to the front of the line. So rather than waiting for a decision for 3 months, that decision is ready for you as soon as you transition out, and then you get that paycheck right away. A lot of people think they're too macho and, oh, my problems aren't that bad, or I don't have real problems, and so they don't even bother. But again, if they don't start manifesting until 5 years later, you're hurting yourself unnecessarily. So I got 80% coming out, and that was not with lying or exaggerating or coming up with, I mean, those were with the no kidding issues that I was having, and that was only because I got it documented while I was in, and so there was evidence. Things like, people talk about radiculopathy when you've got spinal issues with your hands and feet going numb.
yeah,
I demanded to go to a specialist while I was still active duty, and they did nerve conduction tests. So I have actual scientific evidence showing that I have interruptions of those nerve signals and things like that. So when I went and filed my claim, it wasn't just me saying, hey, my fingers are tingly. It was me saying I
right,
have documented evidence and proof that this is an actual condition by a neurologist. So
okay,
I think, people just need to be relentless in their own physical, mental, and emotional health. like they are about everything else. Because, you know, people are relentless in their jobs and being the best. And, um, you know,
Or yeah, even in sillier stuff like what music they listen to, like all this other stuff that they can subscribe, all these millions of people can get on board with. But it's like, what are you doing for yourself or your family? It's not about like just doing what the crowd's doing. You gotta sort of get your hands dirty and stuff like this. Essentially, it's going to take a little bit of work, but it's going to pay off. It's not like none of this stuff doesn't reap the benefits. Like, would you say, would you trade it? Would you trade it? Most people say no because I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's like that's that's the whole
yep.
gist of it.
Exactly, exactly. I try to look at everything that I can as a blessing in disguise. You know, me not
There
getting
you go.
for subs, you know, I wouldn't have gone SWO, and I wouldn't have learned all the things that I did and had all the forced growth. And then I probably wouldn't have been stationed in Jacksonville or gotten to shore duty. And it's like all of these small things, you know, I probably would not own my own business right now. I might be staying in for 20 years, you know, in a sub community and not knowing any better. Um,
Yeah.
just
Can
being
you get off? Can you get out of the Navy on a submarine duty? Like just like the boat too? Can you be like, hey, submarine pop up in Tampa, drop you off, and you may see you?
I don't think so. I mean, so you've got we call them uh, tours, sea tours. I think the Army calls them that too. But basically, you know, you're committed. You get a set of orders, basically. So
Yeah.
depending on what your orders say, it might be 2 years, 3 years, and there's different ways that those can get cut short. You know, maybe they need to cut it short, you know, because you've got an exceptional family member thing, and you actually need to take a break from the military. You can apply for that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different things that you can do to adjust that, and it's very similar to kind of like we were talking about with the programs. Is you just have to have a relentless pursuit of information and not let an initial no or possible negative outcome stop you from pushing for what you need. Because if you need something and a no is what stops you, um, you're going to continue to suffer unnecessarily, and things are not going to get better.
Most yeah, well, you're absolutely right. How did you know enough to start pursuing the claims while you were in?
So I mean, I knew that there was disability stuff, right? And if you talk to a lot of young people, they say, "Oh, I'm not doing that. You know, I'm not a broken person. I don't need to file a claim."
Right.
Some people that get out don't want to file claims because they're tough and they don't need to do stuff. Right now, I'm 32, so I'm not old, but I'm not, you know, in my 20s either. And
Yeah.
you know, so I started talking to, I was lucky to be at a regional command where there were a lot of civilians working there that actually had gotten out of the military, that were prior military.
Okay,
So
that's good.
yeah, I started talking to a lot of those guys, and I was like, hey, you know, what advice do you have about getting out, right? And you'll get some people that'll say things like, oh, tell them you have sexual dysfunction and all this kinds of stuff. You get 10% for that. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need to lie. I don't want to lie, right? And I don't judge people that, you know, whatever, you do what you do. But
Right.
it's just, you know, I wanted to get what was, you know, I don't want to say earned, right? Because it's not like I earned injuries, but you know, it's an entitlement because the military has exacerbated certain conditions. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that all that was taken care of. And part of it was getting taken care of myself now, but part of it was, you know, looking forward, you know, when I'm in my 50s, if I've got a broken back now in my 30s, it's only going to get worse, right? You can't heal herniated discs and things like that. I mean, even if you get fusions and disc replacements and stuff like that, it's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
The earlier that you can address it, you know, the better chances you have of a better life later on. So that was really my primary concern. It wasn't necessarily like, you know, getting the pay and the benefits. It really was just because I wanted to try to live my healthiest life and manage my pain as best as I could. So there's different, there should be one person at every single base that allows you to file before you get out. And I want to say you start that process like 90 days out. And what happens is they'll go through your whole record. They will put together all of your different disabilities onto the form. But what you need to do is, like I said before, is you have to, no one's going to look out for you more than you. So you have to go and
Indeed.
things documented. You have to go to the appointments. You have to make an appointment. If you go to a primary care and they say, yeah, you're good to go, and you have to be willing to say, no, I'm not. I want to see a specialist related to these things. Perfect example. I just went and saw a reproductive endocrinologist out on my own without a referral, because for years I had been getting my hormones tested and they were all within the normal range. Now, as a female, those ranges are very large. But I said, you know what, something's not right. And I went to go see an endocrinologist, specifically a reproductive endocrinologist, because they're well versed in female hormones. And he said, yeah, this sounds out of whack. This sounds out of whack. And we're going to do it. And I found out, I'm 32 and I'm just now finding out I've got endometriosis. I mean,
what's that in Barney language?
So basically, you have growths from the placenta, from the uterus, not the placenta, from the uterus that grow outside of the uterus, right? So it's
okay.
And I'm going to draw a comparison here. There's not quite the same, but kind of like when you think about cancer cells, right? Cancer really is the wrong cells growing in the wrong place. Endometriosis is not that serious, right? It's not cancer, but you have cells growing in the wrong place. And it can cause all kinds of problems like hormonal imbalances, fertility problems, all kinds of different things, right? And so is a female, right? You hear a lot, when you go to medical, right? And you probably don't know this because you've probably never been asked this when you go to medical, but when you go to medical, they say, are you experiencing painful periods and painful menstrual cycles? And probably most women out there are like, well, yeah,
right.
Of course. But the more I've learned in healthcare, the more I've learned that actually is not normal. It's not supposed to be painful. The problem is that so many of us have hormonal dysfunction and different things that we think that that's normal because that's all that we've known. I mean, it's always been painful my whole life. I thought that was normal. And it wasn't until after 9 years of tests showing I'm within normal range that I, on a whim, was like, you know what, I'm going to go see a specialist. And he said, yeah, it sounds like you're low on estrogen and it sounds like this. Let's run some tests, right? And now finding out, and I've always gone and done my stupid pap smears, once a year or every 2 years or whatever, military, and everything has always been fine. So, just because something sounds fine, I think a lot of people, we're looking for that reassurance for a medical professional to tell us, yeah, everything checks out, but no one knows your body better than you do. So, that's another thing about pursuing your own healthcare. I mean, no one's going to care about your health more than you do. And so if something's not right, just because something is showing within the normal range for most people, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's normal. I mean, that's based on data across thousands of people. So that's the other thing. And that's one of the benefits that I think is underutilized with VA healthcare is it allows you to go see specialists in a lot of different areas. Well, your active duty requires a referral.
Right. And that's sometimes like pulling teeth to get that. I had to do that because I got foot surgery when I was in Colorado when I broke my foot in Afghanistan. But but it's available though. It's there, but it's like, if you don't make it known or, that you want to be seen, because sometimes you're not going to get the best treatment by just dealing with someone, for whatever they are. But it's crazy that you brought that up, like just like estrogen levels and like hormones, because something I've been looking into too. And it's combat veterans or just veterans alone are like, excuse me, one of the most prone populations to have like low levels, testosterone levels. And that's something that I try to get looked at for at the VA. And it just ended up not working out for one reason or another. Actually, I'm not afraid to tell it. I went to go do my blood work and they sent the wrong test off. So they're like, oh, we sent it off for your labs next year. Well, I'm like, well, you know what? Like, I've already read horror stories about the VA, like, because they're like, like everybody else, like they're like 10 years behind. So like when they check your testosterone for a man, they might not check your free testosterone. They're not going to do a whole blood panel that like a specialist is going to do, like you're referring to here, which is a great topic of conversation because it's something I've been looking into myself. And when I went to look, I had like a 483. So she's like, and I went to go pay out of pocket and I got it done within a couple of days. So yeah, that's something I'm actually going to do for an endeavor too, because people don't realize that if you're low on testosterone as a man or low on estrogen as a woman, you're just not going to be in the right balance. And that's going to throw a hole, but you know it, you're a bodybuilder. Like I'm sure you know it more than me. I'm not the best one to talk about it, but I do my research and know what's present in the community. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's so true. I mean, the hormone imbalances, females are more likely to have hormonal problems just because they have more things that can go wrong. They have more fluctuations than men do. But,
right.
Even for me, just like you mentioned, there's testing total testosterone and free testosterone. And a lot of times if you go to a primary care, they're just going to take that total and they'll say, yeah, it's within normal range, you're good, but they're not checking the free, right? Or even for females, for example, they'll test it. And for example, progesterone, depending on where you're at in your cycle, you get a progesterone spike, at a specific day of your cycle. And when you go to primary care, they don't ask you where are you at in your cycle when you get it tested. When you go to a specialist, they say, all right, I want you to, after day one of when you start, right, I want you to go get tested the next day, and then I want you to call the office. Because
you got it's way more like specialized, way more personable, way more like it's just that it's sad to say it, but it's the VA is just overwhelmed. That's why they're outsourcing everything. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's really anyone's fault, but whatever you want to call it. So
yeah, so I'm all for, as far as recommendations that, I have to people getting out, it's not only to go get healthcare, but to be relentless about getting the right healthcare. And it's not a knock on primary care doctors. They are meant to be I like to think of it as like the surface warfare officers of the medical community, right? They have to know a little bit about everything to be able to send you to the right person. But if you get a progesterone test and it says, yeah, you're within normal range, right? Or an estradiol or something else, right? But it's all they're seeing is within normal range. What a specialist and an endocrinologist might see is they might say you're not getting that progesterone spike, or they might say you're estrogen dominant because your ratio from estrogen to testosterone or estradiol is off, right? Whereas
exactly,
I'm just going to look at the ranges. So I think seeing specialists is a very underutilized opportunity that we have as reservists for people that are in the reserves, because you don't require a referral. And then also VA healthcare, there's a lot of them that don't require a referral as well.
Right. Yeah, that's great points, all great points. But what's one word that you would describe your time in the military? If you have one word.
Oh man. I would say
it's hard.
I would say honorable, because I just, honorable. And it's not like about me being honorable. It's being around people that I could trust no matter what. I mean, it's like, they really do become your family. And unfortunately, some people have bad experiences at specific, commands and command climate and things like that. But for the most part, the people that you meet, I mean, they're people that, you trust with your life, and, to a different, extent and degree, maybe, depending on what branch and what job you're in, but like when I went to sleep at night, underway on a ship, I'm trusting that the people that are standing watch are not going to turn us into the carrier another ship and freaking, we're not going to all drown in our sleep. Right. Or
exactly.
So I just being able to have that trust in people that you know really well and somehow don't know at the same time. It's just, you don't really find that anywhere else.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's why I feel like this movement or podcast, whatever you want to call it, it could be huge, because that's one thing about veterans. Like, you're not going to be late. It doesn't matter. We didn't even know each other, but no one's late, and like everyone's showing up, and like it's kind of crazy because everyone's bringing their best to the table, and it's not really even that hard. If we were still in the service, this would be nothing. This would be like just having like a meeting or something like that. This is typical everyday stuff. Yep. But it's just on total different topics. It's the same setup, but just it's like life after service type of deal. Like, we should still have the same like stuff going on that we don't have to have formation every day, but there should be some. There is stuff out there. There's plenty of people doing stuff for veterans, but it just needs to get all under one umbrella, or just get more people like out there and known, and stop listening to whatever just listen to something to help yourself, or help somebody else, pay it forward. If you're good, find someone else to do it, help.
Right.
What was your favorite? I mean, sorry, if you had something to say, go ahead. But I was going to ask you, what was your favorite place you've ever visited on a ship?
Ooh, I'm a foodie. I'm a big foodie. And so I really enjoyed my time in the UK. But outside of the tea, honestly, the food was pretty boring. So
I was gonna say, you just eating like bangers and mash, or like fried fish and chips or something like that, with mashed up peas. Like, you can get that at Disney. Like, come on.
Right. So going to Dubai and UAE, there's a lot of like really heavily spiced foods. When you're having that type of stuff, that's great. I think the biggest food cultural surprise for me was when I went to Australia, and they have, you go to like, Disney's or festivals, things like that, and they have these little like carts with, they got the turkey leg at, Disney,
yeah,
or else, right? So it's these little like food carts. So when I went to Australia, they had food carts out there with sushi, but the sushi was in a cone. And I had never had a hand roll before, so I had never seen that, but it's basically like a giant sushi cone. And so I walked up, and I didn't see these, but I saw the menu, right? And it just listed them out, and it was no photos. So I ordered, I don't know what it was, like a salmon avocado or something like that. And they hand me this like two-handed, like giant cone of seafood. And I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? Like, I'm used to eating sushi with, chopsticks. And so, yeah. So that was kind of fun, but yeah, Australia was great. I mean, the food in Greece was great. And then, I never got to go to Japan, actually. That would have been on my list. But I think Australia and Spain would probably be my top two.
So you're saying you like Vegemite the most?
No.
or whatever that is. Yeah.
I did try it.
I know you had to try that, though, right?
Try it, and it's the most I never want to have again. It was, yeah, that stuff was, it's basically like yeast paste. It was not good.
Yeah, hey, anyone wants to send Valerie a pallet of Vegemite, we're gonna get her address and make that happen for her. She's trying to.
I'll video it.
Yeah. It would go live. We probably go viral. Like, hey, like, veteran receives pallet of Vegemite stuff. She's like I remember, like, before we left Iraq, like they sandbagged the sergeant major's room, the door, so he couldn't get out of his room. So we're gonna hit you with the Vegemite.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'll eat it. If I get it, I'll eat it. I'll video it.
Yeah, that's the only way you're gonna get out of the house. Yeah. What so what would be? I was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you if you wanted to plug your business or anything like that. If you wanted to say, what you're working on. I saw that you're like helping people, is your niche market, but I don't know if you want to say that, or it's up to you.
Yeah. So my fitness business is called the Fitness Forum, and it's an LLC here in Florida. So I work with folks in person locally, but also online. I'm about half in person and half remote at this point, just because I've been in the military, and I understand, the sleep and the food and the schedule restrictions and things like that. So I do have an app that I do all of the custom programming through. And then I actually recently, a couple of weeks ago, just launched a supplement line, Neptis Nutrition.
Nice.
So, and the goal there was really to have something that is clean, that people don't have to worry about popping positive on drug tests with, and all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of crazy, like made in China stuff and everything. So it's
a Fedra free, right? Yeah.
So, and it is all, third party independent tested, and it's made here in the US.
All right.
And that can all be found on my website, the-fitness-forum.com. But if you Google Forum, or if you Google Neptis Nutrition, it'll pop up.
All right, then we'll put your links in the description of the video too. So, You got anything else you want to close out on?
Just I'm here as a resource for anybody. I was actually kind of surprised when you said, when you told me that I was the first female veteran on here. So I know I talked a lot about like hormone health and things like that, but I'm happy to answer any questions or be a resource if anybody ever wants to reach out. Don't feel shy. I'm happy to be a sounding board for anything.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, Valerie, I appreciate you taking the step of faith and, putting yourself out there. Hey, I loved hearing your story. We're going to have to meet up sometime in Florida and make something happen, but I'm going to be in touch with you. Maybe you could be turned into like I don't know, like a mean fitness coach on me or something like that. Get me in gear. But nah, I'm meeting some people. I'm meeting a lot of Navy people that got great fitness at. I mean, you're still young, but I mean like 50, 60-year-old people that are like still in great wealth of health. So I'm like, man, I got to get on board because I've sort of let myself go. I'm not ashamed to admit it. We all struggle, like I guess you did a double-edged sword like a double whammy, I would say, on your business. Cause like you're doing something, you're staying in shape doing your business. Usually like I'm selling clothes or something like that on eBay, and it's sort of like you sort of trade that time off for your physical, but you gotta get that balancing act right, or it's just not gonna throw you for a loop, right?
Oh yeah, and I hear you. I mean, I lost 40 pounds last year, so I mean,
Good for you.
haven't been.
I need to do it. If I don't lose 40 pounds by next year, I guess I'm probably going to get enrolled into like a boot camp up in the other side of Florida. So hopefully I can do that because, I'm not trying to get scolded at no more.
At least it's hot down here.
Yeah, all you got to do is go outside and walk. You're right about that. It's been summer since January. So it's like everyone's like, it's summer. Like, no, we've had 6 months already, guys.
It's already been summer here.
Exactly. We're going on our second summer. But no, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I appreciate you doing everything that you have. And, listening to your story is quite encouraging. It shows me I got to get back on my physical fitness. But if you know anyone that wants to talk and, share their story, let's grow this thing like none other. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you, Valerie.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.